This recording is about cin.get, cin.ignore, and getLine and how those functions or methods work with C++. We discussed already how cin skips leading white space such as tabs and spaces. Int data type for cin must be digits and floats, can have a decimal point or exponential notation. So it skips tabs, spaces, new lines. So for example, just to kind of go over this, if I've got A1, A2, and A3 are integers, CH1 and CH2 are chars, and the input stream looks like this, meaning there's two lines of text starting at 1, 2, 3. If you have a read statement that reads in these variables in this order, this shows the values of each variable after this statement is executed. So the cin CH1 is a char, it reads a 1 in CH1 and then stops. It does not continue to read until an empty space. The file marker pauses at the 2. And then A1 is an integer, so it reads the 2, 3 and continues to read numbers until it either reads something like white space or something that doesn't make sense. Then A2 is another integer, it reads 4, 5, 6, stops at the space. CH2 is another character, so the file marker is at the 7, it reads the 7, and then the marker stops at the 8. Next read is A3, which is an integer, reads the rest of it till it gets to that new line character, so 890 goes in there. Last variable is an integer, the marker skips the new line, goes to 124, sees the space, and stores 124 in there. This is another example, has floats and chars and ints. We have the I variables are ints, F variables are floats, and the CH variables are chars. So we read an integer first. Input stream looks like this. It has leading white space and then a bunch of different values. So reading the integer, 12 goes in that value for I1. Stops at the period because for an integer that wouldn't make sense to store that. F1 is a float, it reads a period and 34, stops at the A, stores it at 0.34. CH1 reads the A and stores that, and then I1 reads the 34 and stops at the T. You do need to be careful with C++. If it reads data that's bad, it doesn't crash, it just continues to run, but then the data that it's read in is invalid. So if we have an I1 and I1 is an integer and it tries to read an A, it ends up corrupting the input file. It can't store a character A in an integer. It keeps reading though, and it doesn't crash, continues to go on as if nothing happened. So we just need to be careful that you realize that this can happen with C++. cin.get is a function that can be used to read a single character, and it also reads spaces and tabs and white space. So in this case, if we have A space, B space, C, enter, 3 chars, and we use cin.get instead of cin, the first read reads the first character, which is an A into first. The second read reads the second character, which actually is a space. So middle gets a space, and then the third read reads the B into the last variable. So it reads spaces and tabs and everything. Similarly, you can use that with cin.ignore to skip and read characters, read and discard rather. So it reads and throws away those values. You can have 2 arguments. The first one is how many to skip, and the second one is what character to skip up until. So for example, if the input stream looks like this, I've just repeated it 4 times here, and we start at the 9, we've got 3 ints. We do a regular read, we end up with 957 and 34. Then we have a cin.ignore, and the file marker's here. So it says to ignore 100 characters or until you reach the new line, whichever one comes first. So it goes until it reaches a new line, and the file marker ends up being here. And then the next statement, if it's a cin, it just reads the 128, and that's what gets stored in C. Here's another example where we have, this is your input stream, it's just printed 4 times again, and we have an integer and a character. So the first read reads an A into the character variable, and then the next statement says to ignore either 100 characters or until you reach the character B, whichever one comes first. So the file marker is here. It reads the B, throws it away, and then the file marker stops at that blank spot, the blank space after the B. And then cin.i skips the blank space and reads a 16 into the variable I. Okay, so I'm going to stop here.